Welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio, and this is Webster Tarpley reporting to you from Washington, D.C., and it's our Thanksgiving program. And this, of course, is based on an executive order from the Lincoln administration. I think the story usually goes that it was written by Seward, but it declared a national Thanksgiving. It's based on the older Harvest Festival tradition coming from England and other places. But it's now Thanksgiving for what? For winning the Battle of Gettysburg. And let's always keep that in mind. That's what you're celebrating, that the Union prevailed on the terrible field of Gettysburg. And let me just get ahead of all the other arguments for this week. If you know the Civil War, there is one, the American Civil War, or indeed anyone, but the American one in particular, rather bigger than most. If you know Civil War, there's one overwhelming conclusion, and it's not a matter of detail. I happen to be one of the leading Civil War scholars. My lecture on the Russian fleets is, of course, the most popular video on C-SPAN in their archive in this entire season of the 150th anniversary. I seem to be still leading. And here's my finding. Never again, never again, never again. Anybody who talks about Civil War is a madman. Put him in the clink. Put him in the booby hatch. The loony bin. No. And this now means Senator Tom Coburn, United States Senator from Oklahoma, outgoing, now being replaced by this Lankford character, maybe even worse. Tom Coburn yesterday said on the eve of Obama's statement on immigration that the United States was now threatened by anarchy and violence. I'm sorry, when a senator says this, this is a threat. Coburn is threatening the United States government with anarchy and violence. This is sedition. Now, I'm sure Senator Coburn would argue that he's protected. He can say whatever he wants under the famous speech and debate clause of the Constitution, and that, of course, is a powerful thing. But are there limits? For example, if you advocate the violent overthrow of the government, you can be prosecuted under the Smith Act, provided that this is a direct incitement. It's got to be like crying fire in a crowded theater. Does Coburn's anarchy and violence speech add up to that? I don't know. How about the Rap Brown law? If you cross state lines with the goal of creating a riot, could you be hit with the Rap Brown law? Could Coburn? I don't know. General Sherman, about 150 years ago, was marching to the sea, putting down that last unfortunate rebellion. General Sherman, I think, would have known how to deal with Coburn. But today, it's harder. However, with Coburn has now joined the Civil War caucus. So far, who do we find there? Glenn Beck, articulating the eternal Mormon position of civil war against the United States. And, of course, Michael Savage, a different breed of reactionary or worse. And the worse. When do you cross from being a reactionary to fascism? What's the dividing line? Well, a reactionary works for reactionary policies. We've been talking about them for years here. But does it more or less maintaining the formal legalisms of a legal system? The fascist does it by violence, by armed gangs, by extra legal force, right? Beating up smashing trade union headquarters, destroying media outlets, their offices and facilities and transmitters and presses and whatever that the fascist doesn't like. So essentially, when you go from being a reactionary to being a fascist, when you start mixing in violence, armed gangs, some of the Republicans getting uncomfortably close to that. And just to add the other important element, I think, of this current situation, if we can find the reference here. Today, we have in the Washington Post a report of yet another Obama security incident, and that's the following. Washington Post of today being Friday, November 21st, 2014, Carol Leonig, headline, Woman near White House with a handgun is arrested. A Michigan woman was arrested by Secret Service officers after she was seen walking along the White House's north fence with a handgun at about 8 p.m. She was there on the perimeter. She was arrested for having an unregistered 9mm handgun in her holster. She was wearing a holster walking around the White House. As soon as I heard 9mm, I thought, my God, it's Senator-elect Joni Ernst of Iowa. But it turned out not to be Senator-elect Ernst. It turned out to be April Lenhart, 23, accompanied by another person. Oh, my God, she had a handler. She had a minder. That guy was questioned and then released. And he was not, his name was not released by the Secret Service. So during the immigration speech, she was walking around the White House at the time of Obama's address to the nation inside the East Room. She was arrested just minutes after he concluded. What kind of a situation is this? This is yet another warning to Obama on various issues, and I think this has gone too far. I was relieved that it wasn't Senator Joni Ernst with her 9mm. She's from the 9mm Smith & Wesson party, okay? The Smith Act, the wraparound law, there are other laws. A real government would use them. Now, as people know, Obama made his speech about immigration. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'd like to talk about international affairs first. Is this question, which we have been attempting to deal with now, is there a policy review in the Obama administration about Syria? And you'll remember that we identified that last week. The notion of a policy review was being used as a cloak by warmonger forces inside the administration to try to bootleg in the actual bombing. And we know that's the modus operandi of Skull and Bones Kerry going back several months now, actually a year back to June of right after the fall of Qusair, Syria, back in June of 2013. He came into a meeting of the deputies, the principals, whatever they call themselves, in the National Security Council, and he said we should start bombing Syria right away. And at that point, Dempsey was there to say no, but unfortunately things have gone downhill. I would identify a warmonger cabal which looks like this. It's John McCain, of course, with Lindsey Graham, but also Hillary Clinton, Robert Gates, he's got his shooting his mouth off again, Leon Panetta, General David Petraeus, General John Allen, who's back in the administration, all the neocon think tanks, the AEI, the Institute for the Study of War, the Kagan Family Party, Robert Kagan, Kim Kagan, Frederick Kagan, with Kerry and Samantha on the inside working with them. That's the warmonger cabal, and they don't give up. And they're supported by powerful outside forces. Let's just give a couple of examples on that. Last week, right? Just no sooner had our broadcast of last week gone up that we found in the Washington Post a big article on the front page about how the warmonger forces were attempting to use the time that Obama was out of town. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio, our Thanksgiving edition. Happy Thanksgiving to all. And it's a wonderful holiday, and we're all for it, and we're celebrating that the Battle of Gettysburg turned out the way it did. Don't ever forget that part, because without that, the abundance would not have been there. And, of course, one of the issues there in the Civil War was, would the U.S. be a low-wage economy, including slavery, or would it be a high-wage economy? Unfortunately, for a while, the high-wage economy won out. But since then, that has been called back into question again by all of these neo-Confederates running around, right? And here we are. It's the Gettysburg Thanksgiving and the 150th anniversary of Sherman's March to the Sea. And very soon we'll be getting into the final battles, the apocalyptic final phase of the war in the West, meaning the Mississippi Valley, the defeat of the Confederates at Franklin by Schofield, and then the annihilation of Hood's Confederate Army at the Battle of Nashville in December. And some guy contacted me a few years ago. He was part of the pro-Hood Memorial Society. So I have to say, I can't really have anything to do with that because this is so much against my values. Thomas, how the Rock of Chickamauga became the sledgehammer of Nashville, from Virginia. And we have another good Virginian on the list this week. We have John Marshall, the great Chief Justice, who shows us that the purpose of this government is to promote the general welfare, and we'll get to that too if we can. Otherwise, I refer you to my interview with Tom Kiley yesterday on INN World Report. But as I was saying, on Saturday of last week, a week ago when you're hearing this for the first time, U.S. weighs CIA aid to Syrian fighters. Accelerating training and weapons assistance would fill the gap as the similar Pentagon program takes shape. So in other words, the idea of training the so-called Free Syrian Army, non-existent, subliminal man there, non-existent, but in the meantime, the CIA should try. So right now, with Obama out of town, we see the schemers, and I smell Allen and Petraeus. The Obama administration has been weighing plans to escalate the CIA's role in arming and training fighters in Syria, a move aimed at accelerating covert U.S. support to moderate rebel factions, non-existent, while the Pentagon is preparing to establish its own training bases. Now, this is interesting in itself that they say this. The problem, of course, is we're told that one group has already gotten TOW missiles. Light arms, one group called Harakat Hazm, H-A-Z-M, was among a select group of units to be given U.S.-made TOW anti-tank missiles. But then we find that some of them have been overrun and they've taken the weapons. The latest setback came this month when CIA-backed factions were routed by Jabhat al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, the Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria. Fighters with militia, including Harakat Hazm, one of the biggest recipients of U.S. arms, fled positions in towns across northern Syria while leaving many of their U.S.-supplied weapons to be scooped up by Jabhat al-Nusra. And that's Harakat Hazm that got these TOW missiles that are now in the hands of al-Nusra. Isn't that enough? But then, at the end of the article, what do we find? Who's quoted? Marine Corps General John R. Allen, the administrator's coordinator for the Syria and Iraq coalition. Here we call him the ISIS czar. In an interview with Al Jazeera last month, he said there's going to be fighting in Syria that we cannot necessarily predict. That's putting it mildly, General. The hope is, he says, U.S.-trained forces will be able to hold their own against Assad, against Nusra, and other groups. We're dealing with the ISIS component first because we must. They're a threat to our allies. They're a threat to us. Well, fire this guy. Fire him. He's a security risk. I have put out a statement last week about this. Fire Allen. He's compromised. He's a security risk. After those dealings with Jill Kelly, La Libanaise, this Lebanese woman, who knows what she represents? God knows. He was engaging in a tremendously intense email commerce with her. He's been investigated. The Pentagon Inspector General whitewashed him like they whitewashed everything in the past 20 years. No, out, fire him. Let him join once again Petraeus in disgrace outside of the military. And now here we go, another very, very interesting aspect. Today's editorial, let's see if we can find it. Sorry, it's not today. It's Wednesday. Wednesday, November 19th. Top editorial, leading editorial, Washington Post. Here we have Gates, once again, of the warmonger clique, saying that you will not be able to seriously degrade Islamic State without special operations forces on the ground. Petraeus comes from special operations. Obama gave them the mission to destroy ISIS, but when you then deny the military the authorities they require to achieve the objective, you leave them with a great sense of frustration. Well, I'm sorry, Gates. We have traditional civilian control over the military. General Grant got his orders from President Lincoln, and that's a good system. Now, the Washington Post helpfully adds, it's not just the generals who are chafing, but U.S. allies, including Turkey and Qatar, are increasingly uncomfortable with Obama's strategy of training the moderate Syrian rebels in the hope that they will fight the Islamic State but not weaken Bashar. I'm sorry here. Erdogan is a figure of treachery. The Emir of Qatar embodies treachery. We are chafing here. We are chafing. We are really uncomfortable here that Turkey and Qatar continue to support ISIS in every way, with logistics, with the border, with crazies coming in, right? Recruiting of the crazies. Check what Taradawi says about ISIS on the Arabic language edition of Al Jazeera, not Al Jazeera America, with all those familiar worn faces from CNN, but Taradawi. And here's the interesting thing that takes us, I think, to a new level. Obama was asked, "Are you actively discussing ways to remove Assad?" Mr. Obama's response was a blunt no. Did you hear that? No, we are not actively discussing ways to remove Assad. Now, we had denials from Ben Rhodes last week. We had a number of denials about this policy review that was supposed to lead to the bombing of Assad when Obama was out of town. We took this back to Avril Harriman. We took it back to Al Gore. Harriman, of course, giving the signal for the coup that killed the Diem brothers in South Vietnam in 1963. We had Al Gore bombing Serbia in 1999. They tried it again, and they failed, and Obama said, no. We'll give you that in detail now in a minute on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Now, you've got to keep up with Tarpley.net, Tarpley.net. A lot is happening. And through Tarpley.net, you can see the Twitter feed, Webster G. Tarpley, minute by minute, hour by hour. Keep in touch. Get marching orders. You want to know what to do? You want to know how to intervene in the world? We'll be glad to facilitate that. And we are grateful for the attention and support that we have received, right? The Twitter feed is approaching 17,500 followers, I guess. Followers, people who want to stay in touch. That's not my term. That's their term. Obama and Syria. So there has been this drive to use these trips, right? The trip to Beijing, to Burma, and to the G20 in Brisbane, Australia. And they tried to get bombing going when he was out of town. And his response is no. Now, the Washington Post was complaining about that on Wednesday, November 19th. Let's go and see the underlying article, which our intelligence service here has found for us. And this is at the Convention and Exhibition Center, Brisbane, Australia, on November 16th, earlier this week in the afternoon, as Obama was getting ready to leave. So it's a question series from Kristen Welker, and she wants to know about Syria. And the question she's asking, is there in fact a policy review? And again, that had been denied by Ben Rhodes. Now it's going to be denied by Obama, so that should be pretty clear. She says, Kristen Welker, question to Obama, are you currently recalibrating your policy in Syria? Does that include plans to remove Bashar al-Assad? Was it a miscalculation not to attack Assad earlier? Thank you. Okay, Obama says, I think he's saying, I watch this stuff very carefully. I'm watching you putschist, golpisti officers in the U.S. military, you seditious, insubordinate generals of the Petraeus stripe. We have a weekly meeting with my CENTCOM commander, says Obama, with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, with all our diplomatic personnel related to the region, as well as my national security team, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, intelligence team, to assess what kind of progress we are making both in Iraq and Syria in respect to ISIL. I will be having weekly meetings as long as this campaign, the ISIS campaign, lasts, because I think it's important to get it right. We have not had a comprehensive review of Syria, but we have had a comprehensive review on everything every week, what's working and what's not. We have not changed our attitude with respect to Bashar al-Assad. Fine, he doesn't like Assad. He thinks he's not a good president and all this stuff. Question again, follow-up from Kristen Welker. But just to put a fine point on it, are you actively discussing ways to remove Assad as part of that political transition? Answer from Obama, no. Therefore, lunatics out there who are drooling to attack Obama, why don't you attack the greater warmongers? Obama certainly bad enough, whatever you want to say. But why not attack McCain, as we've been doing with our Arrest McCain for ISIS with a hashtag or a diesis, the famous sharp in front of it, right? Sharp, Arrest McCain for ISIS. Why don't you attack those people? Why not attack the people on this list? McCain, Lindsey Graham, Hillary Clinton, Robert Gates, Leon Panetta, David Petraeus, very important. General Allen, I think, is the main schemer. I think General Allen, as ISIS czar, he's one of the most dangerous people in the world. The entire neocon group, Kerry of Skull and Bones and Samantha, the humanitarian bomber. Why don't you attack them? Why are you attacking Obama? What is this? We see the various crackpot websites. You got to impeach Obama or the world will end on such and such a date. I would prefer to identify with the use of intelligence and reality-based criteria who the actual warmongers are that might be bigger. So why not attack a bigger warmonger rather than a lesser one? And again, Obama, bad enough on a number of topics. However, there's also this, and we can't really solve this one right now. President Putin of Russia this week has made a statement according to which cooperation between the Russian Federation and the United States is possible. Возможно. I am absolutely for it, and therefore we've got to find the ways. Now, I don't think Putin would be saying something like that into the teeth of a roaring gale coming from the loud traps of McCain or Lindsey Graham or such people. I think there may be something underneath. Maybe Obama has figured out some things, right? Maybe he's figured out something. So the other interesting aspect of this is Turkey. Here we have the Washington Post expects us to be concerned about the tender sensibilities of the Erdogan regime of Turkey. Well, I want to know about Serena Shim. I was on Press TV of Iran a month ago, around the time, October 19th, when Serena Shim was, it looks like, murdered in Turkey after receiving a death threat from the Turkish intelligence. And again, I always speak with great sadness as a friend of Turkey, having been there in the 1980s and met virtually the entire political class. Naturally, my Turkey is the Turkey of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk and his entire program, which I regard as exemplary. But the killing of Serena Shim points to something very different and very ugly. Serena Shim killed when her car was hit by a piece of earth-moving equipment. If we go back to, let's say, the death of the Austrian politician Georg Haider, many years ago now, almost a decade, we will see that Haider was also apparently killed by a piece of earth-moving equipment. That is, at any rate, the estimate of my friend Gerhard Wisniewski. So we'd have to look into this, but this looks extremely suspicious. The OSCE is there. We're interested in the OSCE these days because we want them to act to condemn the United States in the case of Reverend Pinckney and some other human rights cases. But the OSCE is there, and they should really be probing the Erdogan people, Davutoglu, and unfortunately the U.S. NATO networks and the Turkish intelligence. So we are always on the verge of someone of this group. I think, again, Allen right now is the biggest candidate that I can see, using their position to act behind the scenes. And the fact that that woman was arrested at the White House with that weapon during Obama's immigration speech, to me, points to the fact that he is still being threatened, and that this is a absolutely intolerable situation. Why don't you get indignant about that, all you people out there, especially the ones who used to claim some intellectual credentials, right, which obviously don't exist. Now, let's talk about immigration. I refer you on the immigration question to the summary I provided with the help of kind help of Tom Kiley, INN World Report, done yesterday. That is to say, the Thursday, the 20th. Also, Coburn. We've dealt with Coburn. What is the underlying reality? Well, the United States workforce. Remember that all of the other principal economic problems have severe dislocations, severe demographic problems. Russia, the life expectancy is falling. China, terrible result of one-child program. EU getting old and getting old. U.S. escapes. Why? Because of Latinos and their immigrants. So be glad of a Trump card. Back in a minute. World Crisis Radio. Keep up with everything at Tarpley.net, and Webster G. Tarpley Twitter feed. Buy some of those books for Christmas giving. It's time. The holiday season approaches. So the future of the U.S. workforce, we need these people. That's very clear. And the fact that they're willing to come here is a great advantage. I would invite you to carry out a thought experiment. Suppose everybody in Latin America wanted to go to China or the Russian Federation. Suppose they wanted to go to the European Union. You could say, hey, let's go to Spain where we speak the language, and we'll make a new life there. Under those conditions, the United States situation would become, in some ways, almost hopeless, because those reactionary white voters that have not provided enough children for the country, right? They have not given the fatherland enough kids. They would dominate more and more. But above all, the working class, the workforce, would become decimated. And if the Latinos wanted to go someplace else, that would really mean that the United States would be in a tremendous disadvantageous position as far as even national survival were concerned. So be glad that Latinos, Asians, and others want to come here. It's some kind of residual merit that the United States seems to have. Again, a lot of it is based on past performance rather than current upward mobility. But nevertheless, there it is. Embrace it. Hold on to that with both hands and your teeth. Make such people feel welcome. There's an exemplary program here in the city of Baltimore where they said, we're going to be depopulated. We better make people feel welcome. Stop with this vindictive stuff. And the most absurd, that would be that you can't have food stamps, you can't have Medicaid, you can't have Obamacare. Absolutely absurd, vindictive, Calvinistic in the extreme. And we are told now from various accounts that there have been, a lot of celebrations in the Latino, but also a sense of bitterness among the Latinos because it doesn't go far enough. And I understand the Obama reason for this is that you have to do what is legal in the form of an executive order, right? You cannot indeed change laws, but you can change the administration or the enforcement of those laws to reflect different priorities, and I think that part is fine. But there are all kinds of workers, men who have come to this country from Central, South America, Mexico, who were sending money back to their families. They kept their families there. They worked here. They're not covered. There are lots of other people, right? There are all sorts of other categories, right? Probably about 60% of the undocumented immigrant community is not covered. And even those that are can't get these elementary basic assistance of food stamps and Medicaid and so forth. I would ask you seriously, no matter how blinded you are by hatred, racism, and prejudice, in the age of Ebola, let's say, do you really want to take a large number, 6 or 7 million, or 12 or 14 or 20 million, and say you're not allowed to have Medicaid, you're not allowed to have any even basic medical care? We have to come to realize that the line of defense of the human species is the human species. We do not want any diseases of epidemic potential making the leap from the animal kingdom or any other part of the biosphere into our own human ranks, because, of course, once it's among people, then it spreads more rapidly. I would think that even the most benighted, raving, racist Republican, the most bigoted, would be able to understand that. But apparently not. Now, remember the safeguards. My safeguards, 15 fifteenths. It's a fraction. You can draw it, right? 15 over 15ths. 15 fifteenths. The 15 is $15 minimum wage, living wage. Put a floor under the ability of anybody to undercut your salary. So if you're a blue-collar worker at a low level of pay, you have a legitimate beef if the Latino comes and takes your job away by working for a very low wage. Let's at least put a floor under that. I would hope to raise it, but you get the idea. The other thing is increase the demand for labor inside the United States by doing the obvious. A 15% protective tariff. I call it a protective tariff. In the old days, that would have been a revenue tariff, but in today's world, it certainly would function as a protective tariff. So $15 minimum wage, 15% protective tariff, and the THS is Taft-Hartley shutdown. Shut down the Taft-Hartley law that cripples the union movement by allowing southern states and other oligarchical states, Michigan now, to join the union-busting ranks. No, no, no. We want to go back to the Wagner Act of the New Deal, not the Taft-Hartley Act of the post-war, passed over Truman's veto. At least he fought on that one. Shut it down. So 15/15ths, $15 minimum wage, 15% protective tariff, and Taft-Hartley shutdown. You do those three things, you're already on the right track. Now, of course, my program remains seize the Fed, open up that $5 trillion infrastructure window, 30 million new productive jobs. One programmatic novelty this week is, after having looked at the details on the prison industrial complex and mass incarceration, I would certainly call now for not 5 million, but 10 million emergency summer jobs for youth who are having a hard time breaking into the labor market to begin with. That would be number one. Now, the other side of this is political. Even on NPR today, France 24, I'm sorry, he said, this is the first presidential thing that Obama has ever done. After 6 years of cowardice and cringing and conflict avoidance, Obama seems to have stopped momentarily repeating this garbage that he's been telling us for so many years, that he was going to be bipartisan and post-partisan and that he could reach across the aisle. This is absolutely insane. And it was simply cowardice, right, in the face of these people, right, who are now claiming that they wanted to be friends with Obama. It's ridiculous. So maybe Obama, maybe miracles have not ceased, and Obama is actually able to understand that fighting is better. Scratch a bully and you find a coward. scratch a bully, you will find a coward. Hannity, Limbaugh. If Obama gets the virtues of fighting, the sky's the limit. Here's what I saw in this entire thing. The Republicans are not energized. They claim they're going to go bonkers. They claim they're going to go crazy. What I see is the Republican consultants are tamping down the lunatics. It was very hard to get any Republican of any note to come out last night. Who did Hannity get? He got Bachmann. She's on her way out. King. This is his issue. Ted Cruz yesterday was quoting Cicero's oration against Catiline. Cruz should go and look up, I'm sure he does not know, how Cicero ended up, and maybe he should back off and not be quoting Catiline quite so much. But the idea is that as has been pointed out, the main Republican worry yesterday was not what Obama would do, but how many damaging quotes, how many racist, xenophobic pieces of sound bites would come out of the mouths of these Republicans, right? The lunatic caucus of the Republican Party. As of today, Friday, the 21st, the Republicans have all left town. They're all gone. They ran for cover like rabbits. They couldn't run away fast enough. They did not want to be quoted. They did not want to be on TV, right? Mad Cow was saying she tried to get Republicans to come on. None of them would. Costa, it's an interesting story. I'll tell it after the interviews. Robert Costa used to work for the National Review. Now he works for the Washington Post. He uses his old contacts. Do we know what the Republicans are thinking? They are running scared, except for the absolute lunatics. Back in a minute. Welcome once again to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio, our Friday, the 21st of November, Thanksgiving edition, coming at you from Washington, D.C., and I would like to now go to our interview section if we're ready, and that would include starting with our good friend, Reverend Edward Pinkney of Benton Harbor, Michigan. Is the Reverend on the line?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Okay. Reverend, we've been noticing gathering momentum, a lot of alternative media, social media, other places now being alerted to your case. Why don't you give us an update on how it's going?
Absolutely. It is going wonderful. We're going all across not just the nation, the world. On last Sunday night, I was on a conference, and we had people from Russia and every place else. Everybody is interested in what's going on here, not only in Benton Harbor, but in the state of Michigan. And it's tremendous. I'm excited, Webster, and I want to thank you, because actually you are one of the ones who's spearheading this whole thing. And we're definitely having a great time right now, regardless what it looked like. We believe that we're going to go there on the 15th of December and knock their socks off, because I'm going to have some breaking news that Friday when I talk to you on the phone that's going to rock your world and my world. I'm going
Let's see again now.
This, and you're going to be the first to hear it, Webster. It's going to be on your show. That when I expose this on your show, the Friday before the 15th, you will be the very first to hear this. And you can let the word out that you will be the very first. That's a promise, not a say-so.
All right, Reverend, we're talking about, I guess it's December 12th. Friday, December 12th is our last program before the 15th.
Yes.
So we'll certainly have you on then. And now everybody has to tune in, right? Spread the word. Tune in. That's here right. Friday, December 12th.
You have to tune in, because it's going to be breaking news all over the world.
Okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, nobody can believe this. The word is spreading so fast now that I'm very, very excited, and I can see the light now. I have to be honest with you. They thought that they had me just where they wanted me. But unfortunately, I got them where I want them to be. Because even without that lawyer that I've been praying for, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. We are still in need of funds, which is crucial. If you know, the most important thing that we got to do when you go talk to these lawyers, especially at this stage, they do not want to talk unless you have a checkbook and a fat one.
Right.
But we doing Webster. I tell you, we're doing the things that need to be done, and I'm excited. I'm really. There's a possibility I could be going to jail for the rest of my life. For the rest of my life for something I didn't do that nobody did, but yet and still, I'm happy today. I'm happy to be on your show. I'm happy to be able to fight for the people.
Your cause is that of all of us. If a political protester can be put in jail for life, then all of us are immediately in danger. Our friend Randy Credico is facing a possible 5 to 25-year sentence sometime in the next week or two weeks, right? Because he filmed a cop in the New York City subway with a little video camera. What is this? This is practically the Gestapo. This is a reign of terror. We can't have it. And right now, the world attention is on your case. So we have to fight through all the way. That's for sure.
You know what? And here's the thing about Randy. I wish that I could just be there with him. I mean, just to give him that support he needs and show them the way that we fight and let them know that we can win these battles. We have to be out there, right there, and go face to face, eyeball to eyeball, cheek to cheek with these people. Let them know that it's not the end, and we can win. I'm telling you, Webster, Randy is going to win his case, and I'm going to win my case. I don't care what they say, what they do. We're getting ready to shock the world, and we're going to do it together.
I also tell you, we have to this question of the Upton family, right? Fred Upton, the powerful congressman, his brother, another Upton, the head of Chesapeake Power, and this Kate Upton, this actress whose career they have bought, and this entire family, right? As you told us last week, Fred Upton, great college friend of Governor Rick Snyder. What you see there is an actual fascist cartel coming together to loot the state and to simply privatize and expropriate these valuable assets, right? And you're fighting against that, and they frame you up. It violates the Helsinki Accords and the OSCE. It violates the Organization of American States, Inter-American, Western Hemisphere human rights things. So, Reverend, before we go any further, tell us, again, I could practically recite this myself, but you better. How can they send you money? How can they help?
You can go to bhbanco.org. That's bhbanco.org. Or you can mail a check to Banco, BANCO, 1940 Union, Benton Harbor, Michigan, 49022. We really, truly need funds. And I can't express that more. We need them right now more than ever before. Because I'm telling you, the 12th, December the 12th is going to be a big day, but we still got to have the funds to win this battle. Those of you, I wish there was 10 people out there who could send me $1,000 and I wouldn't have to worry. But that's asking a lot. But if you can send whatever you can, just to show them what we can do if we put our heads together and fight this battle, because we're going to win. I'm going to win for Randy. I'm going to win for you, and I'm going to win for everybody who's listening to this program. I'm going to fight this battle until the end. And that's a promise and not a say-so.
Great, Reverend. Any interesting developments on the ground? Any comments from that guy? What's his name? Sepik, the prosecutor or the judge or anything like this?
Well, nothing yet, but the key thing, I also want people to make sure they mail their letters to this judge.
Oh, right.
And make sure they say, we don't want leniency, because we're saying leniency, what you're saying, I'm guilty, give him a break. We want them to say, how is it possible for a man to be convicted without any evidence? and also by the all-white jury that was motivated by something other than the truth. And here, I want them to send a letter to Sterling Chirac. That's Chrock. That's 811 Port, P-O-R-T, St. Joseph, Michigan, 49085. That's Sterling Chirac, 811 Port Street, St. Joseph, Michigan, 49085. That's crucial. And we're not talking about leniency. That we're not begging. We're going in there fighting. And we want to know, how is it possible to convict a man with absolutely no evidence? None. Here in America. Only in America.
Reverend, also for people who would like to have a detailed introduction, a walkthrough, how you do these letters, and also some other questions that organizers and indeed the people they've contacted have asked. If we go to the United Front Radio with Daniela Walls and Kyle McCarthy, her co-host, I believe they did an interview with you. It's going to be on the radio here Friday the 21st. But you can also find that and get more detail. Correct?
Absolutely. Okay. And don't forget, go to bhbanco.org and please send me a donation. It got to be done.
We'll be in touch, Reverend. See you soon. More power to you, and we'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Now, we've heard from Reverend Pinckney, and as I pointed out in that interview, there's now a very disturbing pattern emerging of civil rights, human rights violations, constitutional right violations between Pinckney in Benton Harbor, Michigan, and our next guest, that is to say Randy Credico, candidate for mayor of New York, governor of New York, senator, I think previously. He's run for virtually every principal office in the state. He is now facing a court date where the threat is 5 to 25 years, based once again on this ridiculous repeat offender business, which simply means if you have some minor civil disobedience conviction or even a frame-up, that they can then railroad you to jail for these draconian sentences. So this has got to be fought. So we're moving. Once we have two cases, it's a pattern. One you can quibble with, but not two. And here's the second. So, Randy, welcome.
Hey, how you doing? I'm not facing 5 to 25. I think the Reverend is. I'm facing up to 5.
Up to 5.
5 years. Yes.
Well, that's still way too much.
Well, of course. I was just videotaping the police up when I was running for governor. I was up doing a interview. I was on my way up to Westchester with the respected Westchester Journal reporter. And, I get off the subway up there, very far end, and I noticed something going on. 3 guys dressed without badges hassling some, 80-year-old black man, forlorn-looking black man who had gone from one train car to another train car, as it turns out, because it was too hot, So that was his offense. So, 3 guys on my videotape. I started taking pictures of it. Wasn't for sure they were police. And these guys started videotaping me. And we had some words. They were videotaping me, which they're not supposed to do because I wasn't the subject of an investigation. I was just, freely videotaping, which I do all the time. I take pictures all the time of the police in New York City. I wish I could get judges who are abusers as well, as in this case of the Reverend. But the next thing you know, I'm arrested. Spent 24 hours in a Bronx, a real sordid, rancid, medieval kind of, worse than the Bastille. At least the Bastille, you're in there for letters of cachet, so, it's a myth that conditions were that bad, So this was really nasty. It was feces on the ground, the roaches. And, I'm in a room with 30 people. It was really, and there were 6 cells across from each other, 3 on either side. And you got correctional officers who are telling me, please, when you get out of here, talk about what we're going through. I mean, they're being paid to be in jail as well. So I'm facing now, what they did was, since it was raining that day, I had an umbrella. they charged me with 3 counts of menacing the police, threatening their lives with an umbrella. You know, as trigger-happy as the NYPD's reputation is, that's something I would never do. I mean, not even the Penguin would do something like that, who toted an umbrella, would, flail at a policeman with a NYPD cop with an umbrella. So they got me on that, obstruction of government administration, and, of course, our old-time cherry on the top favorite, which is resisting arrest, as if I was running or something. You know what I mean? So I got 5 counts, and these are felonies, you know, a couple of misdemeanors and felonies. So I was in court the other day. Our first appearance, my attorney, who very, very famous, this guy, Marty Stoller, he's defended a lot of Occupy Wall Street, all of them, the majority of Occupy. He got me off a couple of times on those arrests where I was just picked off the street for no cause. And he put in a brief, and he put in some motions. And so what the prosecution did was they got rid of that complaint by the first officer who put this 10-page complaint together and substituted it with a new one by another officer. And that superseded the first one, and that's the more current charge. And I really think they're trying to save face on this one. They don't know what to do. It's a political hot potato to be going after a guy running for governor, put him through these conditions, and to overcharge the person. Now, I have videotaped and taken pictures, but, you know, and I haven't had that phone in, I would say, since that date. I still don't have it. Well, the judge took a look at it and found no video on it. So it's been ordered back to me, but the police still haven't returned it. That's where we are right now. They're playing hanky-panky with my phone. Obviously, something's been deleted there because I was doing it for about 5 minutes. Anyway, the cop came right up to my face and destroyed my hands, my right thumb, semi-paralyzed for a while with horrible cramps. In fact, when we got to the station where they dropped us off at the very end up in the Bronx, the supervisor up there says to the arresting officer, "Why are his cuffs on so tight? Loosen them up right now." You know? Okay.
Randy, let me ask you now, to get it straight, what's coming up is the trial on these charges?
Well, it's coming up to 23rd. You know, we'll see if we're trying to get it dismissed, and they have.
But again, the date, Randy, the date is the 23rd of what?
3rd of January.
January 23rd.
Yeah.
Okay. January 23rd, and this is a trial in what? New York State Supreme Court? What do they call it?
Yes, they call it Supreme Court, which is really municipal court anywhere else. That is in the Bronx. Supreme Court in the Bronx. On January 23rd. Have your listeners stay apprised of that.
We will.
It's always nice to have people in the courtroom.
Absolutely. We're going to do that. Here's my other question, though. As I understand it, there's already a court order that it is legal for anybody to film a police officer carrying out their duties, that what you're accused of is not a crime.
I was not accused of that. They found a pretext to arrest me. That's it. So they can find pretext. People get arrested all the time. The cops have throwaway guns when they shoot somebody. Why wouldn't they come up? Why wouldn't they perjure themselves on something like this? They can get away with it. The guy did this. The guy did that. There's no video. There's no video camera inside that substation, that subway station. There's no video camera. So the guy took video of me, but he says he doesn't have any video. So there's no video to substantiate what I saw, what I witnessed, and they can say, well, he never videotaped, so we didn't arrest him for videotaping. It's all garbage, and I'm going to continue to videotape the police. They don't like it, but everybody should. You know, It's really nice if we can go into the courtrooms and videotape the courtroom proceedings by
Absolutely. Randy, our music is telling us our time is up. We want to hear from you again frequently in the run-up to this January 23rd, and good luck organizing in the meantime.
Thanks a lot.
See you soon, and we'll be back in a second on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Let's just wrap up the politics of this immigration question. As I say, yesterday evening, only the most discredited extremist clowns in the Republican clown car were willing to come out. The Louis Gohmert, the Steve King, the Michelle Bachmann. None of them they're eager to get on the TV anytime they can. When it came to the presidential candidates, though, they did not want to be on TV. Ted Cruz, I don't think, was interviewed. Little Rand Paul was not interviewed. They put out statements, right? Rand Paul put out a nasty statement. But still, you can see there's a great reticence. The one who was willing to come out is Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. Jefferson Beauregard, right? 2 names, 2 insults, 2 pieces of treason. But anyway, that's his name. How about if his name were Adolf Hermann Martin Sessions? Be similar, wouldn't it? So Michelle Bachmann, King, Gohmert, you get the idea. The effect of this, though, is the following. The Republicans are running scared. Let's actually give you some more background on this in a minute when we can. But the idea is this. For the first time, making even a weak, inadequate attack on the reactionary coalition, Obama has exposed their fundamental weakness, that they're terrified of being seen as the fascists that a lot of them are, and the reactionaries, which practically all of them are. They're very, very much afraid. Now, the question that then arises is, what are they going to do? They are split. The Tea Party the real fanatics, are split from the Wall Street, the sort of country club group, right? And you can see what that is. The country club group on Wall Street, they want to inundate the United States with oceans of cheap foreign labor, to drive down wages, to organize scabs, to have strikebreakers available anywhere, replacement workers, as they call them, right? So we're not for that. We're trying very hard to, again, the 15/15ths program, $15 minimum wage, 15% protective tariff, and Taft-Hartley shutdown. That's a package that would go far towards restoring the bargaining power of labor. But the Republicans are split, and they're also split from their Wall Street contributors, right? The Chamber of Commerce wants this, and the individual Tea Party Republican doesn't. If you lead the Republicans through a series of confrontations like this, you're essentially leading them into prepared fields of political fire. They're going to be in very, very bad shape, right? The gutter snipes of the Tea Party split away from the Wall Street country club types. The Chamber and the American Enterprise Institute on the one side, Heritage and DeMint on the other. You get the idea. Limbaugh's saying that Silicon Valley is not happy. Well, then the less happy they are, the more happy we are. The H-1B visa is not a good thing. The guidance from the Republican consultants for this tremendous moment of crisis was, don't be hysterical, guys. Please don't be hysterical. We need you to cool it, right? Don't give don't give the president a victory with your terrible quotes. Here we go with Costa. This is from today's Washington Post. Bachmann came out saying that if you protect immigrants, you're going to get illiterate voters. And Lindsey Graham, the warmonger, said that's unfortunate, unfair, unnecessary, unwise. Charlie Dent, he's a so-called moderate reactionary from the Philadelphia suburbs. He says, don't play into the president's hands. The president wants to see an angry and intemperate response, thinking that Republicans will do something that leads to a shutdown. Don't take the bait and don't have a hysterical reaction. We can be strong, rational, and measured. Can you? House Appropriations Committee Chairman Harold Rogers of Kentucky says he has found the solution is a series of government shutdowns. Cruz says that he wants to stop voting in favor of any of Obama's nominees. Sessions gets into the act. King is the one who says impeachment. Bring it on! Bring it on! Diaz-Balart of the Republicans is saying you have to do something about this, right? But it only takes a couple of comments for an unflattering narrative to build about the Republican response. Warns McCain. Rubio says we need to deal with immigration, a weak sister compared to some of the others. So the party of don't be hysterical, right? Don't be hysterical. Even Limbaugh's engineer, right? This guy Snerdley is telling him, you're not energized at all. You're not looking for a fight. The Limbaugh line is, everybody knows it's unconstitutional. I'm sorry. Unconstitutional is a buzzword for something that fascists don't like. That's what it's getting to be. And that's a terrible situation. So all the windbags fled, even because it's Friday, right? They're all gone. So there it is. Although I'm told today Bachmann and King are going to the border to put on a traveling medicine show. GOP racist rage is impotent. We've got now the other area, of course, the courts. Turley, the great impeacher of Clinton, remember him, eager tool of reactionaries, right? He's also big on polygamy. He's pro-polygamy. Turley's lawsuit is that the Obamacare methods are unconstitutional and unlawful. And Turley has come into service after two fairly well-known D.C. law firms refused to take the case. And you'll remember this, the weak promise of somebody like Boehner is, we're going to sue him in the courts. Well, you told us that 6 months ago, and you never did it because no lawyer could go into court with a straight face on this idiocy. Bachmann says she's going to have a demonstration in the first week of December. Let's see how that goes. We'll soon find out. There's also an immigration lawsuit. He's promising that, as we said. And, of course, the thing we're really concerned about is the Supremes, right, that the Rats Cabal, Roberts, Alito, Thomas Scalia, +1, plus Kennedy, will say that when it says state, the state, it means the individual federal state. I say no, it means the government. Compelling state interest is that the state be seen as the state, not the states. It's a different, it's a similar way of talking. So these are now let's look at the world economy, because this is actually getting quite extreme, I would say. Japan has been in the center of this in the past week. And you could see that this is now getting, that Japan has now contracted for the second quarter in a row. A lot of this came out at the G20, right? We have to remember there was a G20. They do talk about economics. Japan is now in its fourth recession in 6 years, despite the Abe economics. And in G20, Brisbane, Australia, we have Cameron of Britain warning that the world economy could be headed towards disaster, right? We have to see why he says this. But 6 years on from the financial crash that brought the world to its knees, red warning lights are once again flashing on the dashboard of the global economy, writes Cameron in The Guardian this past Monday. We'll come back to economics and finance in just a minute on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio, our final segment here in our pre-Thanksgiving program. Happy Thanksgiving to all. The world economy. So the word now is that Japan is in another recession. Europe is in recession, and there are always reports of a slowdown in China. I think by now some of these are at least partially true, although China, I think, not as badly off as some other places. In Europe, the unemployment rate in the European Union now 11.5%. Europe experiencing conditions that some economists say echo the Great Depression. Stagnation and political paralysis in Europe. Cameron once again says the Eurozone, he's saying not the pound zone, but the Eurozone, but it's true enough. Teetering on the brink of a possible third recession with high unemployment, falling prices, and the real risk of failing growth and the high risk of falling prices too. Now, they're talking about deflation. Mark Carney says, this is the head of the Bank of England now, a specter is haunting Europe, the specter of economic stagnation, deflation, stagflation. Lagarde, the risk of a new mediocre in Europe. Draghi, we'll get to Draghi in a minute. Draghi warning again that monetary policy alone cannot do it. We'll see about that. In Japan, they have now shrunk by 1.6% in the second quarter. And here's a good quote that I think sums it all up. It comes from Peter Tasker, a student of the Japanese economy, and he's pro-Abe. The numbers are absolutely awful, beyond description awful. It's clear that the tax hikers and the fiscal hawks have tanked the economy. All of this from the Tuesday, November 18th, Washington Post. And similar things in the responding to the G20 in the Wall Street Journal, also on Tuesday, November 18th. And it's interesting how they talk about it. Abe says, we have grasped the chance to rid ourselves of deflation. We must not give it up. So the idea, Japan remains mired in deflation. European Union also in deflation, right? And this was the big thing from Abe was that he was going to break out of almost 20 years of deflation and stagflation. The monetary easing, the Bank of Japan has just declared big monetary easing. They're under attack for being too slow. Now let's look at Europe in particular. You'll see why this is the case. Mario Draghi of Goldman Sachs, says he hopes that the European Central Bank is close to backing more aggressive monetary easing. This is all hot money, okay? He says there's low inflation and sluggish growth. It could mean deflation, obviously. He does not, he rejects criticism of bond buying. That would at least be something. But here's what he's doing. The European Central Bank has started to buy bundles of loans repackaged as asset-backed securities. They bought 10.5 billion euros worth of covered bonds last week. Now he says, Draghi says, European Central Bank could buy corporate debt, sovereign bonds early next year. Inflation in Europe is only 0.4% per year. He wants to get it back to 2% a year without delay. And this is the problem now. You're seeing it. The stimulus they're trying is yet another hot money stimulus. It won't work. Here are the kinds of stimulus. There's monetary, okay? Print money, central bank. That's a lot of this is that. There is, of course, fiscal. Run a big deficit. They're not doing that because the neoliberal consensus has fought through. And then there's credit stimulus. We want credit stimulus. European Central Bank, Bank of Japan, United States Federal Reserve, each of you, open a credit stimulus window for infrastructure, for space, for high energy physics, for biomedical research, finance, lucrative, money-making projects, infrastructure, of course, money-making for the whole economy, and do that. The United States, $5 trillion. I guess Europe, probably 5 or 6 trillion euros. Japan, similar amount. Rebuild your entire infrastructure for the 21st century. Japanese bullet trains are now 30, 40, 50 years old. Same thing for French TGV. Build the next generation. Put it all into the real economy. Don't waste your money on asset-backed securities. The entire lesson of the Federal Reserve program in the stimulus, right? First the stimulus, and then QE 1, 2, 3. $3 to $4 trillion of bankrupt, rotten derivatives now on the Federal Reserve balance sheet. It doesn't work. It's pushing on a string. Monetary has been tried and failed. Fiscal tried and failed. Now, try credit stimulus. My program, the infrastructure window, the Main Street window, the real economy window with boxcar numbers. It is the theoretical basis coming, of course, from the Voitinsky-Lautenbach consensus in 1932 that if Germany was going to break out of a Great Depression, which was deflationary in those days, you only can do that if you start buying the bonds, right? The European Central Bank could start buying the bonds of North Rhine-Westphalia and Hessen and the RATP, this thing that runs the Paris Metro, and similarly the Regione Lazio, you know the idea, Regione Lombardia. Those guys issue 0% 100-year bonds, and pow, the shovel-ready projects are trotted out, and an economic recovery occurs. So we're going to be following that, right? Draghi is repeating terrible mistakes. Now, what else do we have? We have to remember that the treachery of Ron Paul, little Rand Paul this time, betrayed once again on the National Security Agency oversight that was built into the reauthorization of parts of the Patriot Act. Little Rand voted to prevent debate. So betrayed you once again, didn't he? Drones yes, drones no. NSA, he's against it, but he doesn't do anything. Even Cruz is willing to have a debate on that. There is the Gruber issue. I suspect next week we're going to have an early taping because of the Thanksgiving holiday. We're going to discuss the Gruber issue. Is the American public stupid? I would say there is false consciousness. There is alienation, reification, fetishism, and so forth. We'd like to go through that. And then let's conclude some interesting notes, right? The first declared Democratic candidate. This is James Webb, former Undersecretary of the Navy, former senator from Virginia. I actually know him. I went to his house. He used to have an apartment above the Marine Corps monument there, the Iwo Jima Memorial. Anyway, he's now the first one out of the gate with an exploratory committee. And here's what I think. He is a stalking horse for Hillary. I can't tell whether he's a left-wing or a right-wing stalking horse for Hillary. I see that Begala of the Clinton faction, Begala says he's an authentic war hero. And the idea is, on the one side, he says there's too much income inequality, and on the other side, he says there's too much government interference. So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. Anti-Wall Street, anti-government. I suspect that they're going to retool him for whatever direction the challenge might come. I think it's supposed to create an illusion that he's to the left of Hillary, and he would then be a wingman in the same way that Ron Paul was working for Romney as a right wingman. I think this is it. But now we've heard the slogan, Webb for president. Webb for president? Well, which Webb does that mean? Webb for president? We'll report more about that in the coming weeks.